Overnight, Hurricane Nicholas making landfall across the Texas Gulf, how Texas A&M Task Force 1 is responding. And it's Small Business Week. We highlight some of the local small businesses who have struggled during the pandemic but stayed resilient through it all. Your KRHD News starts right now.
Connecting the Brazos Valley, this is KRHD News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Hallie Jones. As now Tropical Storm Nicholas moves out of Texas, several Texas A&M Task Force 1 units remain deployed along the coast. KRHD News reporter Rachel Espaillat caught up with a couple of members about the status of the storm and the response efforts.
The worst of Tropical Storm Nicholas has passed through the Lone Star State.
It could have been a lot worse. That if it would have followed the original path, I think we wouldn't be talking right now. We'd still be busy.
But still, a sleepless night for Texas A&M Task Force boat squads, making rescues and helping local response agencies as areas like Matagorda face the greatest impact.
Houses, roofs were blowing off. So the damage was significant for what this storm was originally supposed to bring.
The southern parts of the coast were spared, leading boat squads to reposition themselves to the upper eastern coast and near the Louisiana border. Now, units are assessing the area.
Our crews will be out running around their areas, getting some real-time on-the-ground data to be able to feed back to the state so they can make a determination of how much longer we'll be out.
With hopes of returning back to home Wednesday.
Things can change, just like the storm has changed several times since we've been activated. So if they do, we'll just be ready to respond if they change direction on us.
The tropical storm is continuing to travel eastward towards Louisiana. Rachel Espaillat, KRHD News.
And while Texas A&M Task Force 1 is already deployed, some other Brazos Valley volunteers will be dedicating their time to serving victims and first responders along the coast. KRHD reporter Rebecca Fiedler takes us inside the Salvation Army's mobile kitchen.
The Salvation Army of Bryan College Station will be sending this mobile feeding unit down to the coast to help anyone affected by Tropical Storm Nicholas. Dwayne Walters, a volunteer of many years with the Salvation Army, prepared the food truck for its 132-mile journey to Freeport early this afternoon. Walters and a fellow volunteer coming in from Austin will spend several days in the truck helping out coastal communities.
We understand that there's some significant flooding. We understand that Tropical Storm Nicholas was Tropical Storm, or actually a Hurricane Nicholas, for a short period of time. So therefore we anticipate some wind damage, some power outages, things like that.
The mission of this canteen is both simple yet multifaceted. Walters and his peers with partnering charity organizations will acquire food supplies locally, which Walters will then cook in the truck and serve to storm victims and first responders. The mobile unit will be able to supply up to 2,000 daily meals to those in need for as many days as they are requested. Additionally, the Salvation Army of Bryan College Station will offer assistance such as hotel vouchers to evacuees who take refuge in Aggieland. Reporting in Bryan, Rebecca Fiedler, KRHD News.
Well, what ethnic group do you think grew the fastest in the latest U.S. Census numbers? Well, the answer may not just surprise you, it may shock you. KRHD News investigator Dennis Turner introduces us to a family here in the Lone Star State living the American dream.
I'm half Mexican, well, half Hispanic, because I'm 1/4 Mexican, 1/4 Spanish, and half Japanese, and completely confused.
Ramirez personifies the fastest growing demographic group in America, a group the U.S. Census describes as multiracial.
Just look at the population increase in Texas of the people of 2 or more races. That was a bigger increase than the black population.
In 2010, African Americans made up just over 12% of the U.S. population at 41 million. But by 2020, they showed an almost 89% increase. Those of 2 or more races zoomed from 9 million to almost 34 million. That's an increase of 276%. And you can see it from coast to coast. In fact, Ramirez shares that same multicultural distinction with Christopher Cano of Beeville, Texas.
We have Nigerian, we have German, we have Basque Muslim. My mother's side has Aztec, and we also have Spanish. We also have Sephardic Spanish, Sephardic Jewish Spanish. So we have a very diverse population, even though we were raised Catholic. I recently had reconverted back to maybe like 10 years ago to back to Judaism.
But having a similar background in no way makes these two men the same, as Ramirez will tell you.
And I've got 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and they're all doctors, and their spouses are doctors. I'm the loser in the family. I'm a journalist. We are 5 independently different people with the same ethnicity, but we can be 5 more different people.
And in Texas, we keep bringing more of those different people together.
Our country, even the state of Texas, has always had a lot of diversity in it. Houston especially has been a very diverse city.
Houston's probably the most diverse city in the entire country.
How does the future look? Well, by 2030, experts predict another big demographic shift. By then, they say all the baby boomers will have reached the age of 65 or older, making 1 in 5 Americans retirement age. Later that decade, by 2034, the adults will outnumber children for the first time in U.S. history.
And those children may look different, too.
The youth population is mainly non-white.
Ramirez doesn't seem too worried about that, though he does acknowledge a harder edge most young people seem to have. He says America's founding fathers created a field where anyone from any background can succeed if they take into account the good of all.
There is no limitation if you dedicate yourself to a cause and you work hard to achieve that goal. And I don't believe that anybody in any ethnicity cannot achieve whatever they dream to do if they work hard enough at it. And I think that's the thing that my father taught me, because his father before him told him that.
A man who brought his family here from Mexico and saw that family grow into 4 doctors and a journalist. Dennis Turner, 25 News.
The U.S. Census Bureau shows Texas had the most population gains of any state in a decade. African Americans in Texas increased by nearly 20%. The Texas Hispanic population rising almost 21%, while Asian Texans had the largest population boom at over 64%. White Texans had the least change, with numbers increasing over 1.5%. One area that didn't increase in the latest census report: median household income. The Census Bureau shows a decrease of almost 3% from 2019, with Americans reporting over $67,000 compared to over $69,000. The feds say this is the first statistically significant decline in median household income since 2011. Well, the pandemic has been tough on small businesses, and for those that survived, some struggles like staffing shortages remain. So this year, Small Business Week takes on a new meaning. KRHD's Hannah King shows how you can help keep them around.
For those that survived the pandemic, Small Business Week takes on a new meaning this year. Christy Sayers, manager of Bird's Nest in downtown Bryan, says like many other small businesses, their survival depends on word of mouth. She credits the locals for keeping them afloat.
The last 2 years have been difficult, but I would say that we really rallied together and came through it. So our downtown area, the locals really frequented our stores and made a point of shopping local, and that makes a huge difference, and we made it through.
Coming up tonight at 6, how you can help keep small businesses where you live and keep their doors open. In downtown Bryan, Hannah King, KRHD News.
A new nonprofit marketing group, the Potential Energy Coalition, found more than 60% of Americans are concerned about climate change and the environment, but only 14% talk about this issue often.
Our window to act on climate change is like watching them grow up. We blink and we miss it.
In my case, my 17-year-old made me do it. He's like, Dad, you've been in communications for 30 years. Why don't you start helping with this issue? Which is, I think, how a lot of change happens, that our younger generation prompts us to do that.
That's why the Potential Energy Coalition has teamed up with the Ad Council and another group called Science Moms on a new campaign to empower parents to discuss climate change. Now, Science Moms is a group of climate scientists who are also mothers looking to educate, empower, and inspire moms through relatable information.
And so just connecting, I think also, our communication probably hasn't been the best at times as scientists, right? We're using words that people don't understand. And so they kind of just push this to the side, right? This is not something that matters to me because I have no idea what you're saying, right? And so we can provide them with the information, and we can talk about things like, if you live in Colorado, maybe, when your child is an adult, it's going to be more like what Arizona is like, like making things that are relatable as to what impacts that you can see, your family can see what you'll experience in the future.
Climate research scientist Melissa Bird is one of the founding members of Science Moms. Their website is loaded with resources for families on climate change, like books, videos, and simple tools to take action. While the problem may seem complex, the message is simple. 1/4 of schools nationwide don't have a school nurse assigned to them. Dan Grossman found some districts are beginning to turn to hiring agencies to help find school nurses amid a shortage.
When talking about triumphs that have come for those tasked with keeping our kids safe from COVID,
I wish I could say there was a lot.
the triumphs have been few and far between.
A lot of it became exhaustion, pure exhaustion of the level of work.
Julie Wilkin works as the Director of Health Services for Jeffco Public Schools in Colorado, a district that has lost more than 30% of its nurse working force in only the last 4 months.
They're not only adding on the work of COVID, but now they're adding on additional schools and additional work on top of it.
The district serves 80,000 kids and 50,000 employees across 143 schools. It has 73 nurses.
My family life took a hit. I wasn't home.
Ones like Monica Wood to handle them all.
We were working late nights. We were working weekends. Some of us were putting in 60, 70 hours plus a week.
The problem is nationwide. The National Association of School Nurses says only 40% of schools in the country have a full-time registered nurse on staff. 35% have a part-time registered nurse, and the remaining 25% don't have one at all.
I was going to be a mentor this year for a new nurse, and I was assigned. We met once, and then she, it wasn't for her, so she moved on to something else. We lose a lot of knowledge in the schools when we have turnover, and that knowledge is it's so important.
To handle the issues, districts have started using hiring agencies to fill the gaps, but those have brought issues of their own. The nurses may not have worked in a school before or are brand new to the profession, and they cost a lot more. The Bureau of Labor Statistics shows school nurses on average make nearly $20,000 less than their counterparts in hospitals each year, but the agencies charge what those in hospitals make. With districts already on tight budgets as they've adjusted to COVID, it can be hard to find the money.
I take that very personally and very professionally, that I want to keep our schools open.
With fewer people applying to become full-time registered nurses in schools, the solution has been hard to grasp in this profession built on compassion and care.
As I've been a year and a half into this, the schools are important and they need nurses.
I'm Dan Grossman.
And as we take a look at the Brazos Valley today, well, it looks like Nicholas is having impacts in our area. Not a lot of significant rain out there, but we do have mostly cloudy skies across the region, and that's keeping temperatures down into the upper 70s and low 80s for us. And it is a little bit more on the humid side with that dew point of 69 degrees. Winds around the north-northeast at 17 miles per hour. And clouds and radar showing that the majority of the rain has been well to the east across East Texas, and it's actually pushing away. But we still have the clouds around right now, and I do think that's going to continue over the next 24 hours or so, but this is going to continue to slide off toward the east. You can see clearing back to our west, and all the heaviest of the rain on the east side of the circulation as you push over into Louisiana around Lake Charles and heading over toward Lafayette, Alexandria. That's where they're going to see the heaviest of the rain. So let's check out what we are tracking for us here. Again, a spotty shower or two will be possible through about 10 o'clock, but I do think things will be winding down as we head into Wednesday with maybe an isolated shower, but I think our rain chances will be mainly less than 20%, and we will have partly to mostly cloudy skies. So temperatures probably upper 80s for us as we move into tomorrow. Then on Thursday, probably a little more sunshine out there, and it looks like rain chances go away for the remainder of the week. And as we check out our forecast for tonight, temperatures down into the upper 60s and low 70s. We'll go 69 in Hearn, 71 Bryan College Station, and 69 in Navasota. Then tomorrow, highs into the mid to upper 80s. Again, the clouds will help us out for one more day. before those 90s return by the end of the week on into the weekend. And let's check out that 10-day forecast. 88 degrees on Wednesday, up to 91 Thursday. Weekend looking hot, but as we move into next week, maybe having another chance of some showers and storms.
You may have seen this in your own family or someone you know. Adults losing their independence as they get older. It can be heartbreaking. But Vanessa Machanya found new research shows it's not just genetics determining how long you remain independent. It's connected to your zip code.
Think about your location, your zip code. Maybe you're there because you moved for work, or maybe because your family has never known another one. Maybe you're there because you had nowhere else to go. Of all the things that determine it, your zip code may actually be a major factor in how long you live independently.
One finding leads to another, leads to another.
Dr. Thomas Gill is a professor at Yale, and for the last 22 years, he and his team of researchers have been following a group of more than 750 senior citizens, interviewing them every month and documenting changes in their functions. More than 100 papers have been published about different findings from this study. The latest one paired their research with what's called the Area Deprivation Index, a tool by the University of Wisconsin which quantifies the level of advantage or disadvantage a neighborhood has, down to the zip code.
And we compared those who were living in neighborhoods that were disadvantaged versus those who were in more advantaged neighborhoods and found fairly striking findings.
What they found is that those in their study living in more advantaged neighborhoods were able to stay independent for more than 2 years than those living in disadvantaged neighborhoods. Dr. Gill foresees these findings having both policy, such as making a case for more available housing in advantaged neighborhoods, and clinical applications.
Just making clinicians aware that it's not necessarily individual decisions that are leading to these poor outcomes, but there's this overlay of disadvantage at a higher level, this neighborhood level, that are posing really immense challenges.
When an older adult loses their independence, it can have severe financial impacts to their family. A 2015 survey by the AARP and the National Association of Caregivers reported that 36% of caregivers have moderate to high levels of financial strain. So how can you prevent losing independence for as long as possible? Dr. Gill recommends 150 minutes of exercise a week, starting as soon as you can. And that exercise can be as simple as walking.
Well, if you haven't received at least one car warranty scam already this year, consider yourself lucky. RoboKiller estimates they'll be the top phone scam this year. It's projecting nearly 13 million of this type of scam call in 2021. RoboKiller estimates car warranty robocalls will be the biggest phone scam since it started monitoring robocalls trends in 2017. Now, there are plenty of legitimate extended car warranty plans available, but there are differences between the contracts sold by third parties versus those sold by new car dealerships. The nonprofit Consumers Checkbook found a lot of the third-party ones particularly may not be worth your money.
Page after page of things the policy excludes, and we really had a hard time understanding what it might even cover.
And those exclusions include not covering braking systems, exhaust systems, or catalytic converter seals.
Even when the policies do cover a repair, we found that a lot of these companies have thousands of complaints lodged against them with the Better Business Bureau and other consumer agencies about denial of claims.
Consumers Checkbook also found third-party companies using deceptive sales practices. These are things like robocalls pretending to be the car manufacturer or sending out mailers that make it seem like it's coming from either the state DMV or the car maker. Consumers Checkbook says at a dealership, the extended warranty they're selling has been approved by the manufacturer. There are still some exclusions around what they cover, but they don't appear to deny claims nearly as much as third-party companies. Still, consumer experts say you may not need one of these extended warranties.
If you bought a new car, it's going to come with a 3 to 5 year warranty, and the new car warranties that exist, those that you can manufacturing, are pretty good.
Well, the push is on at some zoos to vaccinate animals against COVID-19. Tomorrow, the symptoms animals show before some of them test positive for the virus.
Thanks for watching tonight at 5. We'll be back in just 30 for KRHD News at 6 right after World News Tonight.